Thank you very much. The F-35 has received more attention than any other aircraft program in history. And judging from the size of this crowd, there's enormous interest in this program that's so critical not just to the United States, but also to a host of partner nations around the world. Recently, the Commander of Air Combat Command, General Carlisle, declared initial operational capability for the F-35. We're very privileged to have him lead our panel of distinguished Air Force leaders involved with the F-35. Joining General Carlisle is Lieutenant General Chris Bogdan, Program Executive Officer, F-35 Joint Program Office, Brigadier General Scott Pleus, Director, F-35 Integration Office, and Colonel David Lyons, Commander, 388th Fighter Wing at Hill Air Force Base, the first operational F-35 wing. Each will make short remarks, and then we'll open it up to the questions which I'm sure all of you are interested in seeing addressed. But before I turn this over to General Carlisle to kick it off, here's a great snapshot of how the Air Force achieved IOC and the F-35 program by the numbers. Please roll the video.
Well, thanks, folks. We appreciate the opportunity to be up here again this afternoon and talk a little bit about what is a fantastic airplane. So I'll leave a lot of the accolades of the incredible jet that it is to Rolls Pleus and Detroit Lions, two folks that have got time in the airplane. And obviously, Rolls was the wing commander at Luke and brought the airplane on in the training, and Detroit is my 388th wing commander that has brought it to initial operational capability at Hill in the 34 Squadron. But the couple things I want to tell you, and then I'll pass it on and let the other folks talk, is there's a couple things that I think need to be made clear. One is this is a fantastic airplane. This is, when you look at where the Air Force is headed, you look at coalition warfare. I spent time in the Pacific. What this means to the interoperability and the ability to operate with others in the battle space and create the coalition warfare that we will always fight with in the future. The centerpiece of that is going to be the F-35. The integration, the interoperability, the fusion warfare that this airplane brings to the fight. And again, I'll let folks talk about it, but it changes the game. And it is going to be the difference maker and the backbone of what that interoperability and that capability is in the future. So I think that it is a fantastic airplane. It was a challenging endeavor when we went down this path. It would have been easier to take a different path, frankly. It would have been easier to let the Navy develop an airplane and the Marines develop an airplane and the Air Force develop an airplane, and we all did it separately, and it would have been easier to not have it be an international airplane, and it would have been easier to just each do our own thing and go from there. But that would have been the wrong answer. It would have been the wrong answer because the ability to do everything that we're going to have to do in the fight of the future, it's what the chief talked about this morning, what I talked a little bit this afternoon, is that fusion warfare, that ability to work across the planes of the sensing or the ISR, the command and control capability, from the tactical edge back to the JFAC, and down to the effects level, and the ability to do that. One of the key components of that is the F-35. Another key component is the F-22 and the B-21 and the family of systems. So although it was a harder path to go down, it was definitely by any measure the right path to go, and to take the more difficult path, but the one that ultimately will prove to be the best move for our Air Force, our entire military, and us and our coalition partners. So declaring the airplane IOC, just a couple of seconds on that. You know, there are people and you know, there's folks that are less enthusiastic about the airplane than I am, and I'm a huge supporter of this airplane. It is a fantastic airplane. And there's people that will make comments that never actually have to do anything like deploy folks or fill a global force management requirement or supply the COCOMs with capability. So from a perspective of the global force provider for much of the combat air forces, for the combatant commands, and the endeavors that were out throughout the world, I declared the airplane IOC with the advice of Detroit Lyons and his wing, because if a COCOM called me up and said, I need these attributes in an airplane and the F-35 fit, I would send it tomorrow. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that's what I would do, and that's what initial operational capability means. It's not the FOC airplane. We're still working that. We have great progress going towards the Block 3F and then the Block 4s after that as we continue to improve the capability. I will tell you that in my opinion that over time, just like many of the other developmental programs we've had in the United States Air Force, although there's sometimes bumps in the road and you don't always get everything the way you want to begin with, as we develop and field this airplane, we give it into the hands of our airmen and allow them to do with it what they're capable of doing. I firmly believe this airplane will continue to get better and better and better, and it'll prove to be one of the most valuable assets in our United States Air Force, our United States Navy, Marine Corps, and our coalition partners. So it's a great airplane, and I think the 388th out there is doing great work with the airplane, and it is IOC, and we're working hard to get to FOC. With that, Chris, it's up to you.
Thank you, Hawk. I'll just give you a little perspective from a programmatic point of view. The F-35 program is growing and accelerating and changing very rapidly compared to where it was a number of years ago. We are going to complete the SDD program, which has lasted way too long, in late 2017 and early 2018, and be able to deliver to all of our customers, the A, the B, and the C model, that full capability that we promised many, many years ago. We're on track to do that. At the same time, we're trying to take that big development program and turn it into a more efficient follow-on modernization program so we can continue to improve the F-35 to meet the future threats and add those new technologies that will keep it on the leading edge of what we need to do in battle. At the same time, our production ramp is growing very rapidly. Next year, we're going to deliver somewhere on the order of a little over 60 airplanes. The year after that, it'll go to 90, and the year after that, it'll go to 120. So in 3 years, we will double production on the F-35. We're watching very carefully our supply chain to make sure they can keep up with that ramp rate. But from every one of our customers, including the Air Force, what I keep hearing is we can't get enough of them fast enough. So keep it going, and we're trying to do that. On the sustainment side of things, We're building what we call a global sustainment enterprise across the whole world. We're putting capability in the Pacific region, in the European region, and in North America, that any airplane in any one of those regions doesn't have to leave that region to get the full spectrum of maintenance capabilities all the way from O level all the way up to D level. We're also putting together a global supply chain that'll be able to support upwards of 2,000 or 3,000 airplanes in the future all over the world. Those are big, heavy tasks, and we're right in the thick of it right now doing those kinds of things with our service partners and our 11 other foreign customers. The program itself is making progress, but that is not to say we do not have risks and things that we have to take care of, because any development program is going to encounter issues. I would tell you that if you build a test program or you build a development program and you don't find anything wrong, then you didn't do a good enough job of building that program. So it is not a surprise to me on any given day that we encounter things wrong with this airplane. What I like to tell people is now is the time to find those things and fix them. The perfect example is our insulation problem we have right now. It affects only 15 A model airplanes. If this problem were not to be found today and to be found 3 or 4 years from now, we'd have hundreds of airplanes out there that are affected. But we found the problem now, we're putting our heads down, we've got a solution for it, and we're going to fix it. And it's only 15 airplanes in the field. We have 42 airplanes in production that'll also be fixed. So the mark of a good program is not that you don't have any problems. The mark of a good program is you find things early, you fix them, you make the airplane better, you make the weapon system better, and you move on. And I think we have a pretty good track record over the last 4 or 5 years of doing that. We don't talk about engine fires anymore. We don't talk about a hook on the C model that doesn't catch a cable. We don't talk about a helmet that has multiple problems with it. In fact, talk to the aviators about how much they like this helmet. We don't talk about landing gear problems. All of those things are behind us. And so what I like to tell folks is we have an industry and a government team that is capable of solving any problem we have in front of us on the F-35, no matter how big or small. And I think that's the main message I want to tell everybody today. It is not a perfect program, but we're moving in the right direction. We have a lot more successes on this program than we have failures on any given day. Just the last 6 months, and I'm going to let General Pleus and Detroit talk about it, but just in the last 6 months, U.S. Marine Corps sent 6 airplanes to Red Flag. The U.S. Marine Corps sent airplanes down to Eglin to do live fire weapons testing with amazing results. The U.S. Air Force had an amazing Mountain Home deployment. The U.S. Air Force declared IOC. The U.S. Navy just completed their final sea trial for the C model on large deck carriers. In the next 2 months, we'll finish all the sea trials for the B model on the small deck carriers. We've had weapon surges. Just in the past 2 weeks, the U.S. Navy demonstrated the ability to connect an F-35 with an Aegis cruiser and shoot a P-3 missile over the horizon and kill a low-skimming drone, hundreds of miles away from the Aegis. That's the new way of war, and this airplane will introduce that many different ways of fighting. So I think there's just an upside to this airplane. We just got to keep our heads down and keep plodding along and making it better and delivering on our promises and our commitments. The last comment I'll make is our international partnership is pretty darn strong. Okay, we have 8 partners. 7 of them have already bought airplanes. We have 3 FMS customers, and I have 3 services. So we have 14 customers now who are deeply involved in the program. This year, Italy will take the delivery of the first OCONUS airplane for good. And in December, we will deliver our first 2 A models to Israel. And those will be the first airplanes in that part of the world that will be stationed permanently OCONUS. So our partners and our FMS customers are deeply involved in the program now. They've bought airplanes. They have airplanes training at Luke Air Force Base. They have pilots and maintainers going through the pipeline. And I could tell you that to each and every one of them, they feel that the program is turning the corner for them, and they're looking for a great future with the F-35. That's about all I'll say. I'll leave it to the guys who've flown the airplane to tell you what they think about it.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a operator's perspective on the F-35. I transitioned from the F-16 to the F-35 back in 2015, as General Carlisle said, when I was the wing commander out at Luke Air Force Base. And so I was very familiar with the program, and I knew that the airplane was going to be great. What I didn't realize until I started flying the airplane was exactly how great the jet really is, and it's only going to get better. Once we get to 3F software and full warfighting capability on this airplane, I'm confident it's going to deliver an awesome combat capability to our Air Force, that of the FMS and our partners, and it's going to be the backbone of not just the United States Air Force, Navy, and the Marine Corps, but of all of our allies and partners throughout the world. In terms of lethality and survivability, the aircraft is absolutely head and shoulders above our legacy fleet of fighters currently fielded. Even though, as General Bogdan mentioned, we are still in the developmental phase on this airplane, we finally got this jet in the hands of captains and majors flying the airplane day in and day out. And they have proven time and time again that this is an absolute formidable airplane and one that our adversaries should fear. From state-of-the-art sensor fusion to low observable capabilities to advanced electronic attack to the unbelievable situational awareness that the F-35 gives, the airplane just cannot be beat. I'm hopeful that as we continue to grow this fleet, we all take the opportunity to form opinions on this airplane from experts. And the only experts in the F-35 business are those that fix, maintain, and fly the F-35 on a day-to-day basis. Whether they be at Eglin, Luke, Edwards, Nellis, or Hill, if you go and talk to them, they will give you the ground truth. If you are taking your opinions or forming your opinions by somebody that has not fixed or flown the airplane, I would tell you you're wrong. Colonel Lyons is going to talk about how well the aircraft performed in the buildup to IOC, but I'm here to tell you that this aircraft is performing very well and getting better each and every day. And it's not just me that's going to say that. The amazing team of airmen that fix and fly this airplane each and every day can't say enough good things about it. I would encourage you to not take my word for it. Tomorrow, over in Chesapeake Alpha, from 10:30 to 11:30, we're going to have the F-35 Heritage Team Lead, Major D-Rail Andriata, and his NCO in charge of maintenance, Master Sergeant De Leon. They're going to have the demonstration helmet with them, and it's going to be a very informal gathering, and you have an opportunity to talk to the folks that fix and fly this airplane on a day-to-day basis. I think what you'll find is a very fresh perspective and their honest opinion of what the F-35 can do. When we talk about fighter pilots, they are an interesting breed. They are by nature people that tell you the facts, specifically about the airplane that they fly, because they are the ones that are actually going to go and take that airplane into combat. The recent success of Luke Air Force Base's weapons qualification, 44 out of 45 hits with GBU-12s. The one miss was a weapons malfunction. Combined with Hill's IOC deployment numbers with a 94% overall hit rate. Add to that live casts being flown down in the Uter as well as down at the Barry M. Goldwater range with real JTACs from all services. And the advancement in the tactics that we've added to SEED and DEED show that this airplane is really combat capable. Recently, one of the DC think tanks, the Heritage Foundation, released an article by John Venable entitled Operational Assessment of the F-35A. As he prepared for the article, Mr. Venable interviewed 31 experts, actual F-35A pilots from both Eglin and Luke Air Force Base. I would encourage you to read the article. It's online. What I found the most telling was that when asked to select which fighter they would rather fly in combat if they were faced with a pilot of equal abilities in a currently fielded fourth-generation fighter, the F-15C, F-15E, F-16, or the A-10, 100% of them chose the F-35 in a beyond visual range engagement and 80% of them in a dogfighting situation. The reason is actually quite simple. The aircraft has the capability to survive and deliver lethal weapons on any target on the ground or in the air at a time and place of its choosing. This platform, when combined with our legacy fighter fleet throughout the Air Force, show that this jet is ready for combat. The nation needs us to be able to go into highly contested airspace and destroy targets at will, and the F-35A is the only jet that gives us that lethality today and in the future. By the way, as a former F-16 pilot for 24 years, I would also choose the F-35A to go into combat if you gave me the capability to do it again tomorrow. Colonel Lyons.
Well, good afternoon. As you heard, my wing, along with our mission partners at Hill Air Force Base, was lucky enough to be called on to deliver F-35 IOC for the Air Force. So we've spent the last couple of years preparing for and then transitioning to the F-35. And one of the things I haven't had the opportunity to really talk about in any detail is the methodology that we used to get there. So today I want to highlight that methodology and the major components of our transition plan, which we designed to provide a comprehensive, precise, and transparent tool to assess how we were performing on a daily basis. I think it's important to illuminate the objective nature of the USAF's IOC journey. We didn't just amass the requisite number of airplanes, fly them till we felt pretty comfortable in the mission sets and declare IOC. On the contrary, our detailed IOC plan allowed real-time analysis and reporting on ALICE, the health, capability, and performance of our jets, the training and proficiency levels of our personnel, and the accuracy of our IOC timelines. From the beginning, our foundational objectives were to establish and execute a standardized, easy-to-audit, repeatable process in order to achieve, measure, and validate comprehensive F-35 IOC objectives. We began with ACC's guidance, which defined the IOC deliverable as 12 to 24 deployable F-35s with requisite support equipment and spares, and adequately trained aircrew, maintainers, and support personnel able to execute basic CAS, aerial interdiction, and limited sea deed in a contested environment. The derived combat deliverable from this overarching framework is a 6-ship UTC able to provide options for combatant commanders wherever necessary. So from ACC's guidance, we refined the game plan into 16 missionized objectives across 66 core capabilities. These objectives fell into 4 categories: the availability and deployability of the F-35 aircraft, access to required support equipment, and the readiness of trained aircrew, maintenance, and support personnel. Core capabilities were nested under these objectives and supported their achievement through delivery of subordinate parts such as JDAM employment rates and appropriate low observability scores, and the availability of the deployable spares package. We benchmark all of these performance goals by way of a tailored plan incorporating 10 individual milestones across approximately a 1-year period, each validated internally by my Inspector General office and externally by outside inspection agencies such as Air Combat Command's Inspector General. My point of giving you all this detail is that we took this effort seriously, and we designed a plan of the type that you would expect from your Air Force as it delivered an aircraft that represents the future of tactical aviation all the way out to 2070. The transition milestones specifically began with a series of logistics readiness exercises. From there, the milestones included assessment events, building in complexity and scope, ultimately culminating in a 3-week, 7-ship capstone deployment exercise to Mountain Home Air Force Base. While there, our F-35 pilots trained and integrated with F-15E and F-16 aircraft in large force exercises against advanced surface-to-air and air-to-air threats. Our achievement of each IOC milestone gave us increased confidence. In the end, when the team turned in an outstanding performance at Mountain Home, we knew we could meet Air Combat Command's requirements. The outcome speaks for itself. The jet, as was mentioned previously, has proven to be both survivable and lethal, also while allowing the technological growth required to remain a viable weapon system for decades to come. Our F-35s did garner a 94% hit rate while at Mountain Home. Overall, we had a 97.5% hit rate. 39 of 40 weapons delivered found their marks. Alice performed as we expected, which was to say that it did everything we needed it to do. We maintained a 92.3% mission-capable rate while we were at Mountain Home during the graduation exercise and completed 88 of 88 scheduled sorties. We also achieved every required mission objective with 0 F-35 losses from enemy red air. As for my own impressions of the jet, they've been overwhelmingly positive. It's a pilot's airplane, and the technology it brings to bear will prove to be game-changing. I agree with General Pleus that if you read between the lines, I think our adversaries are worried, and I think they have every reason to feel that way. The F-35 provides necessary capabilities to win in the modern battle space, and the United States Air Force needs this aircraft. We need it in appropriate numbers, and we need it today. Now, if you'd indulge me just for a second, I'd like to close by throwing a shout out to the 1,600 airmen from the 388th Fighter Wing, the 1,200 airmen from our TFI partner, the 419th Fighter Wing, and our local community, some of whom are in the crowd today, who provided extraordinary support and who worked tirelessly to deliver the results we achieved. There were weekend duty sessions, fourth shift training, overtime hours, and a required level of teamwork and dedication that would make our Air Force forefathers proud. It was a humbling experience to watch, and I was amazed by the effort that went into it. I was just glad to be a part of it. With that, sir, we'll entertain questions.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen. I applaud you all for the short period of time. It's difficult to get a group of folks at this level to hold their comments down to provide sufficient time to answer your questions, and they've done that magnificently. So, question number one. Is IOC a milestone or an evaluation factor to be turned on and off depending upon mission capability status?
I'll take that question. It is an assessment of whether we would use the airplanes in a combat role if required by the attributes of the airplane and the requirements by the combatant commander. So in my opinion, especially IOC is an assessment of where we're at in the program today, and I think we're there. And it is not a end target. It is a step in a further progression of the airplane to what will be FOC. And then over time, like we do with every platform that we fly, continue to upgrade the platform over time. So it's an assessment for our current status with a goal to continue to move farther.
Okay, here's one related to some recent news. John Bogdan, do you have a fix for the F-35 fuel line problem? What is it, and when will you have it completed?
Yes. No, so first and foremost, very quickly, the most recent issue that we're dealing with right now is not a technical issue. It is not a design issue. It is a quality escape from a supplier who supplied us with insulation that, when placed in a fuel tank and you add fuel to it, caused the insulation around the PAO lines that we have in the tank to erode and come apart and crumble into the fuel tank. Not a good thing. You don't want insulation floating around inside of a fuel tank. So it's a quality escape issue. We spent about the last 8 or 9 days with Lockheed Martin inspecting all the airplanes, and there's 15 of them in the field. 13 of them are U.S. Air Force airplanes, and 2 of them are Norwegian jets at Luke Air Force Base. We have 42 airplanes that are pre-delivery at Lockheed Martin that we've inspected and have a similar issue. No Bs and Cs are involved and no other A models, just the 57 that we've talked about. After inspecting, Lockheed and the JPO, working with NavAir and with LCMC, have come up with an engineering solution in which we will go in and by cutting holes in the wings. Sounds hard to do, but we've done that before. And there are access panels we can go through also, and remove that insulation and remove that FOD damage and close the airplane up and allow it to get back into flight. The engineering is done on that. The TCTD, or the maintenance procedures for doing that, are being written as we speak. The first airplane we will test that on is a ground test airplane at Lockheed Martin, and that will start early next week. And as soon as we validate that TCTD, Lockheed is putting together 8 field teams. We will send them out, and probably within about the next week or 2, we will start repairing airplanes. And our first priority is the 15 airplanes in the field, and then we will work our way back to resolving the 42 airplanes on the production line. I think the overall process for the 15 airplanes to be fielded will be completed in December. So we'll spend most of October and November modding those airplanes and getting them back into a flyable condition, and then we will work on the production airplanes.
Great, good news. General Pleus, now that the F-35 is moving out of SDD and the A model has achieved IOC, what will be the Air Force Integration Office's primary focus, and how much of that focus will be on Block 4 modernization?
The Integration Office was stood up to become the single voice for the United States Air Force into the Joint Programming Office. And while 3F is a major concern for fielding, making sure 3F comes out and we have full warfighting capability on the F-35, we also need to start having the tough discussions about follow-on maintenance or follow-on modernization for this airplane. When the requirements document was originally let, it froze in place some of the technologies that have continued to advance over the years. And the Integration Office will be that single voice working with industry as well as working with the JPO, and frankly, the voice for the folks that set the requirements down at ACC as we go forward with the F-35A. 3F is our closest alligator to the boat right now. We want to make sure that we've got full combat capability with software so that the jets are ready for IOT&E starting in October of 17. That's the closest thing that we are focused on. But at the same time, we're also spending our time starting to have discussions about follow-on modernization for the airplane.
Can I make one quick comment about the Air Force Integration Office from my perspective as the PEO? That was a brilliant idea executed by the Air Force a year and a half ago to stand up an IO office. I have 14 different customers in the F-35 program, and sometimes it is very difficult to get a clear message from any one of them. The Air Force, being the largest customer on this program, has a large voice on this program, and the notion that the Air Force now has a single voice on that program and I have a single place to go as a funnel into the rest of the Air Force was a brilliant idea. It has worked magnificently for us in the JPO, and it has worked so well, I will just let you know that flattery is the greatest form of respect, and the Navy watched what the Air Force did, and now they are standing up their own integration office with a 2-star admiral that's coming on board this month to replicate what the Air Force has done. So thank you, General Carlisle. Appreciate that.
Okay, this one's for the 388th Wing Commander, being the most current in the aircraft. Could you give us a little insight in comparing the handling characteristics of the F-35 to other aircraft that you've flown?
Yes, I could. I've flown the A-10 and the F-16 and now the F-35. I think the F-35 flies a great deal like an F-16. However, the primary difference that I would note in extreme maneuvering situations is the ability of the airplane to point. It's in effect a lot more like a Hornet in the sense that it can fly at very high angles of attack as opposed to being a rate fighter like the F-16 was. And there's not a whole lot of comparison maneuverability-wise with the A-10, but it does fly, I think, a great deal like an F-16, if you can imagine that. And one of the things I like a lot about the airplane, as we discussed maneuverability, is the capability to carry the stores inside the airplane. Obviously, that's required for stealth, but something that gets missed sometimes is if I'm in an F-16, I'm carrying a combat load, I'm going to have 2 fuel tanks on the airplane, I'm going to have bombs, I'm going to have missiles, and they're all going to be outside. And if I get into a dogfight with an aircraft, which I shouldn't in an F-35 if I've done my job right, but if I get into a dogfight in an F-16 and we're anchored, the first thing I'm going to do is punch those stores off, which basically negates the mission that I went to do in the first place. In an F-35, I don't have that drag on the airplane. I've got my full-up G available at the moment that I need it most, and so I think that's a really great compliment to the airplane, sir.
Very good. General Carlisle, this one's for you. What is your vision for increasing or evolving cybersecurity as it applies to the F-35?
Great question. So we've looked at that, and with John Hyten and I, with the rest of the MAGCOM commanders and the chief, the previous chief and the current chief. So we're looking at the fact that all of our weapon systems, the F-35 being one of them, all of our weapon systems, if you look at the integration, you look at the net that they operate on, whether it's the IMDS in the case of the F-22 or Alice in the case of the F-35, or even going back to the data programming capability with DTM's data transfer modules and F-16s and F-15s, and the cyber security that's required to protect those airplanes from malicious inputs is incredibly important. It's something that we were probably we're taking on very rapidly, but it's something that we've been thinking about and we got to work harder at and get farther forward on. So one of the things you'll hear the term cyber squadron of the future, and we've talked a lot about what it would look like, but it's basically a squadron that would be probably in the ops group, and its job when the airplane's deployed, they deploy with it. Their job would be just like you do net defense in a cyber world, you do cyber defense in a weapon systems mode, and they would be part of that. It'd be just like everything else that's part of taking care of that airplane, whether it's a weapons loader, an avionics, or a prop shop guy. There would be the cyber guy that was part of that cyber defense for that airplane. So, and it's not just the F-35. F-35, it's applicable to every weapon system we have. We'll bring that forward as we go forward with new weapon systems as well, like the B-21.
Excellent. General Bogdan, will the program plan to incorporate advances in engine technology as the acquisition process continues through the 2020s?
Much like all the technologies on the F-35, we're going to have to ensure that as advances in those technologies become available, we have to take a look and see if they're, one, applicable and can be integrated into the F-35, and two, the right time and place to do that. A lot of that comes from the warfighter telling us what he or she needs and wants on the airplane. But relative to engine technology, just like sensor technology, just like materials technology, engine technology is moving along also. And there's a lot of work being done in the labs right now to improve the range capability of our engines, the thrust capability, the size and weight of our engines. And I would expect, and the program would clearly expect, that somewhere in the mid-20s, much of the work being done in the labs right now with our industry partners will find its way onto the F-35. whether it finds its way on the F-35 in the current engine or some modified engine remains to be seen, but we do fully expect in the mid-20s to include some advanced technologies on engines.
Okay, last question for General Carlisle. Are pilot and maintenance shortages impacting F-35 FOC?
Yes, pilot and maintenance shortages are impacting the entire Air Force. We've talked a little bit earlier today about the 11F shortage. We're attacking that. We're increased our sessions on the maintenance side for the Air Force. We're trying to grow those. We've looked at, with maintaining the number of squadrons we have and keeping the A-10 as we field the F-35, especially the 3rd Squadron at Hill, which is an additive squadron, the squadrons at Eielson that will be additive squadrons, and the squadrons at Lakenheath that will be additive. That puts a burden on our maintenance manpower and our 11F force. We're trying to address those now and grow them. One of the things we're doing early on the maintenance side is for some of the stateside capability, Nellis and Eielson in particular on the F-16, in other places we're doing contract maintenance. That's an interim fix till we grow the more maintainers that we're trying to do. I talked earlier today about what we're trying to do with pilots, the 11Fs. We're trying to grow more through FTU and absorption, and then we're trying to retrain more through quality of life, job satisfaction, and some kind of compensation. So both of those are challenges that we're facing. We're working on it very hard now because it's not really a 2017 problem probably, but it'll start as we get through the 2nd Squadron at Hill and start working into the 3rd Squadron. Then it starts to become a problem as we approach FOC.
Well, thanks very much, gentlemen, for your insights into this critical sensor shooter that will be a key node enabling the combat cloud, which will introduce a completely different and much more powerful set of concepts to how we conduct warfare in the future. Please help me in thanking our panelists today, and have a good evening.